I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We have a really interesting topic today.
I'm so excited about today's show. Our colleague Chad Nyman has identified a great guest speaker that he's going to be tag teaming with here in just a minute. We're going to have Mr. Anthony Morris, who is with Canton Cooperage, and we're going to be talking about basically that process of taking that white oak log and turning it into this amazing stave that goes into these barrels. And we'll learn all about that process and what goes into it. So looking forward to that segment. We'll also have some video clips from our Megan Bulin on some of the cool mushrooms that are out there. So we appreciate that. Thank you all for being with us. If you're on Zoom, you can use the chat function to interact with us. And hello, if you're on YouTube, I'm glad to have you there as well. So Renee, just excited to be with you. A new guest, a cool topic. It looks like a great day.
Definitely. So let's go ahead and get started. Anthony and Chad, if you want to turn on your video cameras. Welcome to the show. We greatly appreciate you both being on here today.
Hello, Renee. Thank you for having us.
Hello, Renee. Thank you all.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about today.
Well, so Anthony Morris is a master in wood drying and seasoning, and he will not let me call him an expert. So we will say he is incredibly knowledgeable, knowing that's an enormous understatement, and his knowledge in barrel making. And he is also the VP of operations with Canton Cooperage. And so we're going to talk today about how the climate and outdoor conditions affect the seasoning of wood. But without any other further ado, I'd just like to thank Anthony for joining us today and discussing this impact of climate and environmental conditions on seasoning of white oak wood. Thank you, Anthony.
We're looking forward.
Thank you, Chad. I think everyone will find it interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. And so in addition to all of your commitments there at Canton, you're also involved with and a member of the Associated Cooperage Industries of America. Would you care to talk briefly about this organization and your involvement?
Well, the ACIA, or the Associated Cooperage Industries of America, is an organization that represents companies that support the barrel making process. So you've got barrel makers, you have stave mills, you have people that operate companies that support the machinery that the coopers need at the cooperages as well as at the stave mills. You've got a lot of different organizations, transportation, international, as well as domestic transportation companies that are members, because the actual barrel community is very small. When you take a look at it in relationship to other global companies, it's a small industry. And for the most part, we all know who each other is, and we get along well with each other.
Excellent. Thank you so much for explaining that. And so would you say that there is a blend of art and science to making a tight coopered barrel?
There's primarily artwork, yeah. Anybody can make a barrel. And some people go, well, what do you really mean? I go, well, the world's been making barrels for thousands of years that date way on back. But making a tight barrel to where it doesn't leak, it looks fantastic, and it's flawless is artwork. But that's just appearance. So those are aesthetics. What really happens and what everyone really wants is they want the inside of that barrel the way they want it, because every winemaker is looking for something different to set their wine apart. The bourbon guys and the craft guys, they're looking for something special that sets their product apart from everyone else. And the real magic happens inside. And the only way you can see what happens is to be a part of the manufacturing process of that.
That's an excellent summary there. Thank you, Anthony. And so white oak is the only species that's used in tight cooperage. Would you care to explain why white oak?
Well, the white oak has got tyloses in it, which allows it blocks off the liquid, the flow of water. And we use water as a test medium, and water specific gravity is 1.0. We do work with a lot of wineries, and wine's specific gravity is 0.8. So there are places that wine will go that water does not go. Okay.
Yes.
Bourbon and whiskeys, they're depending upon their mash bill, depends upon their specific gravity. And it's typically, I've seen it range between 1.2 to 1.3. So some places that wine leaks, the bourbon or the whiskeys don't leak.
Excellent. Yes, it's very important. And so are all the barrels that you all make at Canton American White Oak, Quercus Alba?
Yes, we make the American oak barrels. The parent company, Terenceau in Merpins, France, they make all of the French barrels. And the partner company, Kadar, makes all of the Hungarian oak barrels in Budapest. Now, we do buy some French and some Hungarian material, and we will blend that together to make hybrid barrels for a select few of our customers who are looking for something really special for their bourbon, whether it be something they're going to age 8 to 10 years or something that they want a finishing barrel for. So we manufacture and assemble American oak with Hungarian oak, American oak with French oak. And if you wanted French oak and Hungarian oak, then we could work that up too.
Fascinating. Yes. And so what role does the sourcing of white oak wood from different areas throughout the region play in the barrel making process?
Every cooper you talk to is going to give you a different answer. Okay. But I source oak from mills in Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and I have had mills located in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Arkansas, and North Carolina. But the thing about it is, and this all goes back to some of the people may know this name. His name is Tom Humphrey. He was a genius in the cooperage industry 30 years ago. But Tom set up our wood drying yard, and it's in a manner in which the prevailing wind hits the end of our rows and actually allows airflow to go down between each row of wood that we're drying. And as that wind goes through that row, it actually lowers the air pressure in between the pallets, because we keep about a foot of space between each pallet. And as that wind goes down that row, it reduces that air pressure and sucks that air out and brings in more fresh air, which is what's needed for proper drying of this in the stave yard. So as this happens, you can also, if you walk in between that, you'll also notice that there's a huge temperature difference. I've been outside in the sun where it's 90 degrees in the sun, and you walk into the middle of a stave yard and get into the middle of the pallets of wood, and you'll drop 15 degrees. Now the sun's not that far away from the top of your head, but down inside it'll drop, which are very good conditions. And all of this is, we credit back to Tom in the mannerism in which he designed our aging yards. Now we have enlarged our aging yards over the years, but we've kept this exact same concept that he started with 30 some years ago.
It's an incredible history and succession of keeping all that knowledge retained there and keeping that whole operation going.
Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yes. And so it's been said that over 70% of the flavor and all the color in the bourbon is imparted from that toasted and charred white oak wood. Would you agree that this is the case? And how impactful is that the maturation that occurs with the toasted white oak barrel and fine wine?
Well, every expert you talk to is going to give you a different percentage number, okay? I've heard anywhere from over 50% to 70%. Which is the right number? I don't know. And a lot of it all goes back to the winemaker and the distillers, okay? Because they have what they want to make, and they've been doing it well. For our spirit barrel, which goes into the bourbon industry and the craft industry, we toast all of our barrels prior to the charring process. What that allows is that allows deeper heat penetration into the wood for the caramelization of sugars that's there. And then you get to do that charring process for the spirit barrels, which is what the bourbon guys need for them to call it bourbon. On the wine side, each winemaker, they have different toast levels and parameters that they ask us to follow. We have a traceability software in the plant where we're able to track wood from the time that we set it on the aging yard until the time that that barrel is assembled and finished. And the barcode that's on that barrel tells us where all of the wood came from, what the grade quality is of it, what the age of it is, what stave mill it came from, what state it came out of. And it gives us the ability to consistently produce the same product for the same customer year after year after year after year. And winemakers bank on that because they hate when they get accustomed to something and then something changes in the barrel making process and it creates a different taste or a different flavor or a different note on their wine. It's like, oop, where did this come from? So then they're looking for questions. So it's hugely important.
Absolutely. And you provided such a good explanation there. I really appreciate that, Anthony.
You're welcome.
This might be a good time. You all provided a short video to go ahead and share that.
It takes time, patience, dedication. You have to wait 100 years to harvest a tree. It takes decades to learn how to select oak trees and then staves. It takes a whole life to achieve the title Master Cooper. At Canton, we believe that making the best American barrel is about long-term commitment. We believe you need to let the oak age in open air. There's nothing that replaces that. We've made numerous analyses, studies, experiences, tastings about what goes on a wood yard during open air aging. And the bottom line is, it just tastes better. We have found that here in Kentucky is probably one of the best places to age the staves for the barrels. It has all the best conditions. Climate, rainfall, the right microflora, all of these contribute in the end to the taste of the wine. Each step of the barrel making process is uniquely important. Jointing the staves, raising the barrel, toasting the barrel, finishing, and quality testing the barrel all throughout the process. On each of those steps, the human eye has its importance. You cannot achieve great craft without great people. Here, everybody who contributes to our barrels are proud of what they do. Our American oak barrels are used by a lot of the best wineries in the world, best whiskey manufacturers, best bourbon producers, because we don't compromise on quality. Every little detail matters. All these elements is what helps us make what we believe is the best American barrel, and we're proud of that.
That's a good view of the air drying yard and and some of the operation there. And so,
Yes. The guy talking is actually my boss, Guillaume de Prokental. His office is in Sausalito, California.
excellent. Yes, thank you. And so, Anthony, the barrels you all manufacture at Canton, they're highly regarded throughout the world for use in wine, whiskey, and locally in bourbon whiskey. Can you tell us just a little bit about that? That video showed some of that.
Well, it's like Guillaume said, it takes time to make high quality barrels. The normal bourbon cooperages today are making standard bourbon barrels out of material that is somewhere 4 to 6 months of air seasoning time. We have done laboratory scientific testing on the same lot numbers of wood from the same producers at when it was green at 6, 12, 18, every 6 months, all the way up to 5 years of age and air drying, just so we can watch what's going on with the chemical compounds, what's going on with the tannins, what's going on with the acid, what's going on with the microflora, everything that's in there that contributes to the flavor profiles and notes in the wine as well as in the bourbon. If you really want to understand what's going on with that, then you need to take the time, and it costs a lot of money to allow that age to be put on that wood. So once it's out there, the best thing for it to do, it's got to have the sunshine so it can dry. It's got to have the rain on it so it can help wash out the tannins and the acids that's in the wood. And it needs the snow, it needs the ice, it needs the wind, it needs everything that Mother Nature can throw at it. Now, when you look at that and you sit there and go, okay, well, what if I were to let my wood age in Minnesota or Missouri? Okay, it's going to be different than the wood that we have aged here, because all of those different locations have a different climate. They have totally different impacts of weather. In Minnesota, longer, colder winters, Missouri, they've got some cold, snowy winters, but at the same time, in the summertime, they get hot like we do here. So it's similar, but there are differences that can be noted in the wood once the wood is toasted and charred and sent to the customers. So with all of the different mills that we currently buy from, we bring it to a central location here in Lebanon, and we air dry it here. So it all air dries equally and with each other, which allows us to get a very consistent product for all of our customers as we manufacture.
Absolutely. And so you've built right up to this perfectly. What about your wood aging process makes it unique? I believe some of your white oak wood is seasoned up to 5 years for some customers.
Yes, we do. We age wine barrels and spirit barrels, which is part of our bourbon range, up to 5 years. In the younger wood, in the standard bourbon barrel, you've got a lot of what is known as acids and tannins that they're in the wood, and you need Mother Nature to help take that out if you want it removed. And we have found with partnerships with our customers that this 5-year-old barrel, all of the harshness is gone. Mother Nature takes it out. So it's once again, it's the sun, the wind, the rain, the snow, the ice, everything for 5 full years. Now, somebody might sit there and go, okay, so what does 5 years really mean? 5 years to Canton means that if we get the wood and it was cut in January of 2020, it'll be 5 years old in January of 25.
Yes.
So it is a week by week look at the age of that material before we can turn it into barrels. And we do have a third-party company, Bureau Veritas, out of France in Europe that actually has a third-party inspector come in annually to verify our traceability, our aging, our contamination testing, everything in the manufacturing process here, to sit there and go, yes, your process and your programs are working just fine.
Excellent. Thank you. And so with bourbon and other whiskeys, we hear about the angel share that's lost in aging. And you talked a little bit about the specific gravity of wine being lower than water earlier. Does the seasoning of the wood have an impact on that tight cooperage not leaking, and how that seasoning and drying outside is done?
Well, actually, we've got a bourbon company that we're working with, who was one of the very first that bought some of our spirit barrels, and they will be dumping those barrels shortly, which will give it 8.5 years of aging. They have agreed to share what their dumpage is, so we can take a look at what their loss ratio is. And I believe that there will be more finished product that they dump and less angel share. However, you've got to have a certain amount of that, because that barrel's got to breathe.
Yes.
That barrel's got to breathe, because if it doesn't breathe, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Thank you. Yes. And so what is occurring to the white oak wood while the stacks of barrel staves are outside interacting with that rain, sleet, and snow? I think you talked about the mellowing of those tannins.
Yes, that wood will mellow, what we call mellowing out. It'll change to where, like I said, the harsh tannins and the acids wash out of it, and it's removed. So if it's gone, you don't have to contend with it in the product that's inside. The microflora is a microscopic organism that grows in the wood. And if you go to a stave yard that has wood that's aged for several years, you'll look at it, and some areas of that wood, you'll see what looks like dust that's on it. It's just like White House dust is what it looks like, but that is what we're looking for, because that's part of the microflora of that specific aging yard. And the different types of microflora, they're different state to state, as well as inside the same state, from region to region. They can be different because all of us have a different environmental climate that we're dealing with. Rainfall is extremely important. Do you have that chart that I emailed?
I do. Yes, that was exactly what I was going to head into, as you all monitor the daily weather, including that rainfall at your facility.
Right. So we monitor weather daily. We document weather daily with our yard supervisor and our grading inspectors. We work with the National Weather Service to gather the rainfall every month, and then we create a graph, because it is extremely important. Now, this graph is from 1995 until December of 22. And if you start at 22 and you count backwards 12 years, you'll see that we had above average rainfall 10 out of the last 12 years. So it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, one, we got wetter than we did before, but we've been tracking this so long. We know that the more rain you have, the more mellow the wood becomes over a 3 and 4 and 5 year time frame. Because if we had droughts or less rainfall, and if you go back to like 99, 2000, 2001, we had people that were sitting there going, what's going on? The barrels taste different. And that weather has a huge impact on the aging of this stuff. Now, is there anything that you can do? If you're below normal on the rainfall, I don't know of anything, because if you were to water the wood, one, that's a huge cost. Two, you'd be taking what I call tap water that's got fluoride and chlorine in it and putting it on wine staves, which that is extremely bad compounds to put on wine staves, because then that takes us into a whole nother topic, which is TCA contamination. But it's just something that we deal with, and we watch it extremely closely. Now, I've got weather data that supports that chart dating back to 1941. And can you pull that chart back up one more time?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the bottom line, the pink line, the solid line, is the average rainfall that's given to us by the National Weather Service. Okay. The red dash line above it is the actual average rainfall from 1995 up through 2022. So you can see that there's a difference between what we're told is the average, because it goes so far back in history, it's not funny. But when you look at the last, 20 some odd years of it, the average rainfall is actually a little bit higher, which for stave aging is actually a better thing. Thank you.
Thank you. And so you talked about it some already, but when you're monitoring this type of data and gathering this type of data, what does that allow you to understand about the wood and the conditions that it's exposed to due to those environmental conditions?
Well, we know that as long as we get the proper rainfall monthly, that the air drying process is working the way we want it to work. So things are leaving. So you've got wood that's green, it's got moisture in it, and some people go, what do you mean it's got moisture in it? Well, anybody that's actually been out in the woods or in the backyard, if they cut a tree down and they see all this water running out of it, they're sitting there going, oh, that's just sap. Well, yes, it is sap, but sap is moisture. And that's what we gauge by. Different cooperages dry their wood to different percentages of moisture. Some dry down to 18% moisture. At Canton, we dry down to 12% moisture. That just means that there's less moisture in the wood, which means at a later time, it will shrink a lot less than a barrel that has more moisture in it.
Definitely. Thank you. And so will those rainfall trends and weather, we know that they'll impact that flavor profile of the finished barrel. Is this one of the benefits of aging wood for longer periods of time? I think it's clearly established.
Yes, that's clearly a benefit, to give it more time over different calendar years to actually do what it's supposed to do.
Excellent. Yes. And so with that, would you say that Canton's wood seasoning and barrel making is located where they are because of the climate and our native microflora, which have this profound effect on the seasoning of the wood?
I would like to say yes. However, Canton was originated up in Canton, Ohio.
Yes.
But I would think that the area that we're in is probably some of the very best seasoning and drying conditions that I've seen. Now, I know that some of my competitors out in Missouri may sit there and have a different opinion, and that's okay, because I like what they do as well. And that's the thing. We all do something. It's a little bit different, but that's what helps make the world go round.
Absolutely. So with the durability of white oak wood, it helps, it's durable. But how do you all balance allowing all those natural processes and allowing that to modify that wood with weather and climatic conditions and microflora without that wood disintegrating? I guess it's all balance, right?
Well, that's the one thing about white oak. I've done enough testing with white oak and the manner in which we stack our pallets. And you can stack white oak outside, leave it in 100% weather environment, and the rot, where it begins to rot on the surface, starts to form at about 5.5 years. So it's very durable. It's not like a white pine or a yellow pine that you take and you stack them up, set them out in the weather, and then in 2 years or less, it's pretty much disintegrated, because you've also got insects that get into it. Well, the termites won't get into white oak. And the only thing that I've seen that actually gets into it are boar beetles. But they typically don't get into it until after you make the barrel, because boar beetles aren't here; they're at the wineries. But it's very durable, and it will last a long time in the environment. Now, white oak, if it's submerged in water, it'll last for hundreds of years, sort of like cypress.
That's excellent information. And so it's important to note that there is no waste produced throughout the barrel making process at Canton. Everything is used. Can you speak to some of the additive products that are created these days using wood residues?
Okay, so all of the wood that we actually bring on site is used in either the barrel that we manufacture, it's used in the oak alternative products that we manufacture, or it is consumed in a gasification boiler system that generates steam for us for our kiln drying and steam tunnel process for the barrel manufacturing process as well. It also produces enough steam in the winter to assist us in heating the plant for our people. So by taking a look at the tons and tons that we actually bring in every year, we ship out about 5 or 6 truckloads of waste that we cannot consume ourselves. And there's a company in Campbellsville that actually gets that material for their wood-fired boiler process. And it works well for all of us involved. And it's, according to the EPA people that I have to deal with, they're extremely happy with everything that we're doing to keep track of this stuff for them.
Excellent. I just happened to notice a question came across about what are oak alternative products. And I know that they're for the wine industry, but would you mind to talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so I'm going to say a whole lot of words here, and people are going to go, what's that? What's this? We have on the internet, we have a storefront. It's called extraoak.com. So if you go to that, you'll see pictures of things that I'm going to talk about. But we manufacture chips. So this is white oak that it's stave and heading pieces that are not barrel quality wood. So we'll age it for 18 to 36 months, just like the barrel stuff. We'll put it in a specially designed wood chipper. We'll collect the right size chips. We'll toast them in one of 2 processes. We've got 2 continuous feed ovens that are actually, they were designed to make Lay's potato chips. The other 2 ovens are what we call batch ovens. And those batch ovens were made by Jabaz and Sons in somewhere up in New York in 1901. But they were originally made to roast peanuts at the ballpark. So it's funny on how you can do any of this stuff. But we have what we call oak on a rope. There was a picture of it here on the screen. There it is on the left and on the right. We've got a French line and an American line. These are pieces of oak that are not quality driven for the barrels. And so we'll cut it to the size that we're after, which is about 1 inch square. We'll drill a 3/8 of an inch hole all the way through it from one end to the other. We'll toast it to the toast level that's desired. And then we put it on a string. It's got a stainless steel sinker and a bung. And you pick this thing up after it's assembled, and the winemaker just drops it down in the barrel, puts the bung in the bung hole, and they come back at whatever time they want. There are the soakers, which are the round balls that you see. We toast them. You can put 2 pounds of them in a barrel, and then come back in anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and you've got oak attribute in your wine. There again, that's French and American. You got different toast levels from light, medium, medium plus, and heavy. We have inserts and barrel insert units and fan assemblies, and it's just a large group of things. Anything that you can actually think of, we can actually put together and make. And it's primarily for the wine industry. Now, some of the bourbon people have inquired about things, but you can't use that product and still call it bourbon because it's not in a barrel.
Yes, the federal law.
But some of the craft guys who are calling it whiskeys, they're interested in it. And there are so many competitors out there on the alternative market. It's not funny. Canton started in the alternative market making chips in 1978. And when I joined the company in 2001, there were like 35 alternative companies in the United States. Today, there's over 250. And everybody just wants a piece of the pie.
And it seems like a great use for that oak wood.
It is. It's a very good use for that material, because if you can't put it in that alternative market, then what do you do with it? Which has been a question forever, and in years past, people didn't worry about it. I remember the day in the last 23 years that I've been here, I can remember the day when the accountants would sit there and go, "Oh, throw that wood away. We don't have that much value in it." Well, you don't throw that wood away today. The value is huge in the wood today.
Yes.
What's going on in the forest, at the stave mills and the logging, and the number of barrels that all of the cooperages are seeing high demands for.
Absolutely. That segues well into the next question I've got about technology. And technology's come a long way in assisting people in making exceptional quality barrels. I think some of those additive products, there's some technology involved in making those. Any thoughts on the blending of traditional methods and technology to produce the highest quality barrels?
Well, there's a lot of technology that goes on. In the past, we had what was known as an Anton stave joiner. This Anton stave joiner was made in Germany, and it was rock solid. It was good. However, every time you put a stave in that thing, you lost 3/8 of an inch in the width of it. And that was 3/16 of an inch on both edges. So I tracked our wood consumption in that for a while, talked with my boss, Guillaume, and we actually came up with a payback process to buy a new Minot, which is a French manufactured stave joiner. And it equalized the stave, planed it, jointed it in one continuous process. And the first year we had it, I got about 6 months worth of savings on it. The second year we had it, I kept track of the entire wood consumption through that machine, and we saved $285,000 of wood, because it only took off 1 millimeter off each joint, not 3/16, which actually allows the staves to be wider and you to actually make more barrels out of the same volume of wood. And technology like that is huge. And I've seen some of our competitors, they've moved to the same type of machinery. And there's a company, Whining, they make some really good solid built equipment. And that's what everybody's looking at, is how can we process this material to where we're losing less of it, because it's more precious all the time, as well as the cost continues to go up. So everybody's looking at it, everybody's watching it, and if they can come up with something that makes their life and their company better, then they'll do it.
Absolutely. That's a great summary. And along those lines, so Canton is a member of the White Oak Initiative. Would you mind to explain the importance and benefits you see in this nationwide initiative to help assist landowners and industry in sustaining white oak on the landscape?
Well, I know Geordie Jordahl is no longer with them, but he was there originally. And he and I did a lot of talking in the very beginning when this thing was getting off the ground. And the importance of it is to get out and talk with landowners. They can see what's going on. If people, might be funny, but people, when they go out in the woods, they need to stop. They're too busy. Their minds are racing too far, too fast, too quick. They need to stop and slow down and pay attention to what's around them and learn about what is really needed to help the white oak forests, whether you've got 10 acres of woods or whether you've got 10 million acres of woods. It doesn't matter. You need to slow down and understand what you can do that, one, doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, because if it costs you a lot of money, you're not going to do it. Okay. But what you can do to help improve that portion of the white oak forest. Now, we know that in the harvesting, where they're going out and they're taking white oaks and red oaks and hickories and walnuts and poplars, and they're taking those trees out, the first thing that comes back is red maple. So the red maple and the white oaks are competing against each other, and they may have some sprouts there together, and you'll notice it, but you come back in a year or two and the white oaks are gone and the red maple's there. Well, the red maple grows faster. So if that little red maple gets above the top of that white oak sprout, it just stole all the sun. So it's things that they can learn to look for that will help that white oak tree increase in numbers as well as in quality. Because the quality of the tree, and a couple of years ago, I sat down with, what's the guy's name? Dr. Jeff Stringer there at UK. And we talked about log quality and the quality of trees that they're seeing in their surveys today are no close to a match of what it was 20, 25, 30 years ago. So with the quality of the log and the trees going down, then the finished product from those logs goes down as well. So if you can do something to help those trees actually grow better and be healthy, then I think it's something that we should do. And this is one thing that we need to do, not for us, not for my children. This needs to be done for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. Because some people will sit there and go, okay, how long does it take a white oak tree to mature? Not to grow, but to mature. There are some people that are primarily bourbon cooperages, and they'll go, it needs to be a minimum of 40 years. 40 years is, it's one lifespan. It's a little over a generation. Well, the wine people like myself, we like to see that tree mature 80 to 120 years, which it allows it to really grow. But if you sit there and you look at a 100-year-old tree, how many generations has passed on a 100-year-old tree? You got 3 and you're already into the 4th generation. So these are things that we can look at, but we have to really understand that we're not going to see a benefit in it, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will.
Thank you, Anthony. You did a great job of explaining some of those challenges and getting white oak regenerated and competing out there on the landscape, and the fact that there is extra work that's usually needed to be involved to be able to help that oak out.
Yes,
Planning is a big part of that in that succession.
yes.
So thank you so much. For those that don't know, Anthony serves as an industry advisor on a barrel stave drying degrade and recovery study in a cooperative with other cooperage experts and the University of Kentucky. I want to thank him for his dedication to supporting wood drying research that helps to extend the use of available white oak in partnership with the University of Kentucky, and his involvement and support of the White Oak Initiative. Anthony, we greatly appreciate you joining us today and sharing some of your vast knowledge with our audience.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was good stuff, Anthony. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You know, one of the things, I work primarily with woodland owners and trying to encourage them to sustainably manage their woods. And it certainly, you brought up some good points. It's a process, right? It's a process to get those oaks up and being competitive. And so we try to get ahead of landowners whenever we can to make sure that we're looking at our woods before that harvest. Do we have the species in place to take over and be successful? So it's a good shout out and a good reminder to all of our landowners out there. Work with some professional foresters and you're more likely to get the outcomes that you want, including that oak regeneration. But Anthony, good stuff. Chad, there was a few questions in the chat pod. I think you got most of them, but there might be one or two that we might not have.
There was one, I was just looking through those. They asked, do you flat stack or do the slant stacking?
I prefer the flat stack methodology. Okay. That's the way we've been stacking for the last 18 of the 23 years that I've been here. We did the slant in the beginning, and once you start to pick those pallets up and move them from point to point, they start to fall down, and then you have a big horseshoe. So they're a real pain to move and then stack up at a later date. But we do prefer the flat stacking. Yes.
Thank you.
We got a nice comment came through, Anthony. I don't know if you saw that, but the person said they felt like they just took a crash course in white oak. So you covered a territory in a short amount of time.
Well, this is a little off topic, but I'll share it with you. Every time that we hire a new salesperson, they're required to come to the cooperage and spend a day and a half here with myself and others to understand the process. Typically, and several of these salespeople have been in the wine industry for 30 years, and they've been involved in the barrel making for 30 years. And they come in and they spend 3 hours with me, and it's like, oh my God, leave me alone. I'm on brain overload. I had no idea, because there was so much to this. And for us here, it's just what we do every day. If we were to get into another topic like grading of wood, I could sit here and talk for this long and longer, because there are so many different defects that's in white oak that we don't want there. So we cut it out in our grading process. And when you actually start looking at those things, it's huge. Mm-hmm. I've even had some lumber guys that cut staves, and I've looked at them and said, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? I didn't pay attention. I didn't see that, so it's like, okay, but we look for it. We watch it. About 12 or 14 years ago, we were running into a problem that we called short rays in wood. And it's like, okay, what is a short ray? Well, everybody knows that white oak has to be quarter saw. And for the proper quarter saw, the ray must run from the bottom face towards the top face on a 45-degree angle or perpendicular. Okay. Well, we look at the stave on the edge as well. So if that ray runs from the inside bottom to the outside top in less than 8 inches, we know that stave's going to leak wine. because that ray is where sap travels.
Mhm.
Well, if sap goes in and out, what do you think wine's going to do?
Go in and out.
So then they sit there and they go, well, how can you tell it's going to leak? Well, it's historical for us. And everybody that goes into a wine cellar, they've seen it, but they don't know what they're looking at. And that is you go into a wine cellar and you see these barrels sitting over, and they got this little round bead of wine popped up on the outside of the wood in different places. Where did it come from? Why is it there? Well, that's wine that is leached through that ray to come to the outside of the barrel. And that's just the way we look at things. And then we actually trace that short ray back to the log. And you sit there and go, well, how do you do that? And so, well, it's pretty simple. You get at one end of the log and you look at the bark and you go, all right, so what are we looking at? And I said, just look at it. Does it look like it runs up the log straight? Or does it twist like a barber's pole? I said, because if that bark twists like a barber's pole, the rays inside of that are going to be short because they're twisting with that bark. Okay. And it took me many years to get a couple of my mills to separate logs out like that because they didn't believe it. But then after they saw it with their stuff and had problems, it's like, okay, I guess maybe you do have a point. So.
Question, Anthony. So how do we know which, when we're out there in the woods growing these, is this, I guess, does this show up looking at the, the tree itself? We're not dealing with the log at this point. We're just looking at that tree and
yeah, you can stand right there and look at it.
See that twist in it.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I don't know this answer. I've got white oak on my farm and one standing there and it is straight as an arrow. Okay. And it's probably a 18-inch oak, and right next to it, there's a 20-inch oak. And that sucker is nothing but a barber's pole all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there for, 100 plus years, it seems like. Why did one twist and the other one not? And I had one person say, well, this one was exposed to more wind. I go, no, that was deeper in the woods than this one.
Yeah.
So,
I was trying to find that management thing that we could do to create the right conditions to grow the right tree. That's what I was looking for.
Here's the thing. Just because it's got that twist in it doesn't mean it's a bad stave log. Mm-hmm. It's not good for the wine industry, but it goes fine in the bourbon industry.
Okay. Once
again, that's understanding and knowing what the specific gravity of those different mash bills are.
It's this. We got to get you back, Anthony. I know you're a busy guy and you're running a big old cooperage there, but man, you got a lot of great knowledge, and I know our audience is just eating it up and enjoying it. So we really can't thank you enough. And
you're welcome.
Thank you for connecting us and getting Anthony on the show. What a great guest. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Anthony, for your time.
You're welcome.
All this information.
Yeah, really good
as
stuff.
Long as we plan it anytime.
Hey, we'd love to have you back, Anthony. Really, thanks for all you do, and good luck out there for sure. Keep up the great work.
We're going to do our best.
Thanks.
One day at a time.
Yeah, that's all any of us can do, really.
That's it.
Oh, awesome.
All right, so we do have one more topic that comes up after. We're going to talk a little bit about mushrooms.
Yeah, so Megan created us a nice little video here, so I'm going to go ahead and get that rolling.
This is a Hericium mushroom. This is a very small specimen. They can get to be fairly good sized. I've seen some that are a little bit smaller than basketball sized on occasion. There are several different species within the genus of Hericium, and they can be sometimes a little difficult to tell apart, especially when they're smaller like this. But they're a really lovely group of mushrooms. They're sometimes called pom-pom mushrooms or lion's mane mushrooms. And Hericium are toothed fungi, so rather than gills or pores, they have these little teeth that look kind of like icicles that hang down off of the fruiting body of the fungus, and that's where the basidiospores would be produced. This guy's a little small yet. They are always white when they're fresh. As they get a little bit past maturity, they can take on a little bit of a yellow coloration to them, but younger specimens and fresh specimens are always going to be a nice white color. Sometimes they're completely round pom-poms like this. Sometimes they're branched and they look kind of more like icicle or coral structures. It just depends on the species of Hericium that you're looking at. They also have a very distinctive aroma. It's kind of sweet, slightly pungent, and a little bit difficult to describe, but once you've smelled it, you'll definitely associate that distinctive smell with Hericium fungi. They can be parasites or saprophytes, so they can either grow on decaying wood or they can grow on living trees as a parasite. It just depends upon the situation that you're in. Here in the east, we usually find them on hardwood trees. Occasionally out west, you'll see them growing on conifers, but like I said, in our area, almost always hardwood trees for the little Hericium fungi.
I always look forward to those videos. You always learn a lot within those short segments, but I mean, I've seen those mushrooms before and they're just a neat little mushroom to see on a tree.
Yeah, big thanks to Megan. She really helps us kind of see the rest of the world that's out there that a lot of us, we might just go on by and not pay attention. So no, big thanks to Megan for helping us there.
Wonderful. So, we've had a lot of information today, a lot of good information, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We have this show every week on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock on a variety of different topics. So make sure to join us each week at 11 o'clock. If you're interested, because I know you had a lot of information today, we will have this posted within a week on our FromTheWoodsToday.com, and you can go and rewatch it and you can learn everything that you just heard about today if you'd like. There's also a survey that you can do on that website.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you if there's something you want to see. We've done some shows from our guests' requests and from other viewers that have requested shows. So please let us know if there's something you'd like to see, and you might see it in a future show.
You just never know. All right. So until then, take care, and we will see you next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
From the woods today.